Hey there, this is my new shed. I'm going to share some of the photos and videos from the build, a few tips, and some of the humbling experiences. As with any new build, you have to mark off where your building is going to sit, you have to make it square, and then draw some string to make sure your foundation will be level. Now that all the planning is done, you're ready to start breaking some ground. And here I am with the post hole auger that I rented from Home Depot. I rented it for 2 hours and it definitely wasn't long enough. This is a long, arduous task. So I'm digging down well beneath the Canadian frost line for these footings. Here you can see the auger sitting in the hole. There's an extension to add, so there's another 2 feet to go. Here I put sonotube down the holes. You don't just put cement straight into a hole because the frost can grab that and heave your foundation. Next step is tightening and leveling those strings again, driving in our stakes, and starting to build our box to pour our new foundation. Many of my neighbors told me that this was overkill. But because this is a low-lying area of our yard, and every spring there's a little bit of water to deal with, I wanted to raise the foundation and just prevent any shifting or heaving every spring. So here I am just packing some soil on the outside of the form so when the cement goes in it won't wander. You can see here I've braced them so the form won't bulge when the cement goes in. The drill was getting hot, I had to cool that off. And I'm just dry fitting some rebar before it goes in. Here you can see 26 bags of back-breakingly heavy cement. We overbought in this situation. It's always better to have too many and return them than have too few and run out in the middle of a job. We had 6 post holes to fill, and I forget the exact cubic measurement of the form, but it's an 8 by 12, and it's 4 inches or 5 inches wide and 6 inches in depth. Alright, the next step in preparing the form is bending the rebar and getting that strung up and ready for the cement to be poured in and around it. So what we discovered was a great solution on YouTube. Someone said use the leverage of 2 2x4s. So I put U-bolts in and I just fed that rebar through, and you just basically stand on one end and use that long leverage of the 2x4 and it will bend the rebar quite nicely. Here you can see how I used the rebar. I tied in the exterior foundation to the post holes so they would act as one solid unit. And here the form cross bracing serves double duty, and it's used to wire the rebar up so it's floating in the middle of the form. And the cement mixing commences. Here are just a couple scrap pieces of wood. They just help guide the cement into the form. You're working at a pretty good pace just so nothing dries out, and having that little aid is worth its weight in gold. And taking lots of water breaks is a must. This is back-breaking hard labor. There was a lot of tapping on the form to make sure the cement had good coverage and to get those air bubbles out. And here are the embedded anchor bolts that will go through the bottom wall plate, anchoring the shed to the foundation. And on with the foundation is done celebration. So since I had to let this dry for a couple of days and there was a risk of rain in the forecast, I was taking no chances after all that hard work. After a couple of days letting this dry, it's time to take the form off and check out the end result. Okay, here's a brief explanation of why I did the foundation the way I did. I had a lot of bricks at my disposal and I thought, why not inlay those and utilize that instead of pouring a whole great big flat slab of cement. Okay, in preparation for laying those bricks, I leveled the earth as best I could and tamped it. In fact, I probably over-tamped it just to be safe. I put down a sheet of plastic just to prevent any moisture from coming up and any grass or anything like that growing up. And then you have to put down crushed stone, and that would enable the bricks to lay flat, and leveling them would be much easier. And down go the bricks one by one. You have to interlock them as you go and avoid any straight lines. During a much needed water break, Mel stole my thunder and put in the final brick. And once all the bricks are laid and everything's tamped and settled, it's time to brush in that fine sand. This mixture has a bit of cement in it, so when it's wet, it'll lock it in solid. And now on to my favorite place, the lumber yard. And with a little ingenuity, the wood fits perfectly on my dirt bike trailer.
Here's Cal backing up with the new trailer. Oh, he's actually doing really good. Show off!
And much to Mel's chagrin, backing up this new trailer, new to me anyways, was way easier in reverse. It has a longer wheelbase than my old trailer, which I would jackknife every 5 feet.
Awesome!
Alright, time to tie everything down safely with ratchet straps. Too many times I have seen people leave the lumberyard with twine holding something to the roof of their vehicle. And returning home after trip number 2, break out them muscles. Okay, all of our materials are stacked and accounted for. I applied some water sealant, which is why I stacked the wafer board like this. I wanted to prevent any premature rot from the rain and snow over time. And before building any walls, I put down the bottom wall plates and drilled the holes for the anchor bolts. And here's wall number 1 ready to go up. And with a good bit of progress, 3 walls are already up. I want to point out that it's important to put down a water barrier between your cement foundation and your wooden wall plate. Your cement will act like a sponge and wick water straight up and rot that wall. Here I've used a foam foundation gasket. A lot of this project was learn on the go and were first for me as I went through the project step by step. I am not a carpenter by any means, but after doing all my research and watching a lot of videos, I was pretty confident in the stability of my structure. Here I'm just working out the angle of the Clearstory roof. On the back wall it has to be raised up about a foot, just so it has a little more elevation on the front where I'm going to place some windows to let some light in. You can see one of my neighbors was poking around to see what I was up to and I put him to work. And with a few days of rain in the forecast, I just had to shut things down and just tarp up that wafer board for safety's sake. Alright, after a few days break, I'm back and putting this Clearstory roof together. As you can see, I got my ratchet strap out and it's holding the 2x4s tight and in place. You know, 2x4s in sun will warp and twist, and that's what happened with mine. I put an extension on the roof, an overhang. It's called a roof ladder. And again, that ratchet strap held it in place great while I had to screw things together. Okay, jumping ahead with all the framing done, the walls are going on, and when the walls go up, it really prevents any sway and the structure becomes very strong. So I'm getting up on top and I'm now doing the roof. And as you can see, with a one-man operation, you're walking up these sheets of wafer board or plywood up on top. You need little help, so to prevent them from sliding back down, you can see I just screwed in some blocks of wood, and I did the same thing on the back. So when I had to lift the sheets over top, I slid them down slowly and they stopped exactly in place where I needed them. Okay, with the Clearstory windows now framed and the shingles on, I just wanted to pause and show you that you can't be too careful going up and down ladders with materials and tools. So I just screwed in something temporary that I can take off eventually, just to hold my ladder in place, because I didn't have an extra hand to hold that ladder each and every time I was going up and down. Phew, that was a lot of work. Time for a break. Okay, a bit of explanation of what you see here. After a long delay in the siding, it didn't come in. They said 3 to 5 weeks, and it was well over that, and we had tons of rain, so I started to get nervous, and I decided just to paint that with some old paint I had lying around and protect it, just so the wafer board didn't get wet and soggy and ruin all that hard work. With some sunny days ahead, I've got the fascia boards and soffits all pre-cut, dry fit, and now they're just being painted. They'll be ready to be put on after the siding gets installed. As you can see here, the side window is now installed. It was already roughly framed, and when I found this window on Kijiji, I just had to do some minor tweaks and it fit like a charm. As you can see, even though things aren't complete, anytime's a good time to get some things moved in and out of the weather. Our kayaks were at the side of the house just sitting on some racks and getting sun-baked, so I devised a little system to use some rope and some eyelets and hoist them up right up to the roof and right out of the way. Being late September in Canada, the leaves were about to fall off the trees, so I figured, hey, we'll get out the tree trimmer and cut those branches off before I had to do any raking. Okay, that was just a joke. As you can see here, I was just getting the limbs out of the way so I could start with the siding. And I think this is a couple weeks later, so we're talking early October, and it was cold enough where the siding wasn't cooperating, and I had to start putting some of it indoors so I could then cut the tricky cuts. With the tin snips, you would cut along a line, and if it was too cold, it would actually shatter. Here you can see I'm just doing the siding around those 3 windows up top there, and I took extra special care to make sure I didn't have to go up and down this ladder too many more times. And having not even completed the siding below, I was like, alright, fascia boards are going up, I'm tired of climbing this ladder. Here I am in the final stages of the siding. I left this to last because these are the shortest cuts, and I wouldn't want to do this first and then leave myself piecing together the long sides. As you can see, both doors are installed, and that secondary door, it's basically going to be closed 90% of the time, and I was going to side it, but then once I opened it up, I noticed with siding it was going to pinch, so I opted just to paint that. Ta-da! One complete shed. As you can see, the fascia boards and the soffits are all installed, the siding is up, the doors are on, everything's weather tight, and my toys are moved in. All the shelving and my workbench that I plan on building is yet to come, but now that the outside is complete, I can focus on the inside. And here we are the following summer, everything's complete. I graded all the ground away from the foundation. I had some extra bricks and I lined the perimeter just to keep any grass growth or weeds from growing up underneath the siding. And I had some patio slabs, so I actually put those out front to make it easier to move things in and out. This extra door, I just have 2 pin bolts, one at the top and one at the bottom, and they keep that side fixed whenever it's not open, and the main door closes right into that perfectly. And so here I am, just showing you how that swings open, and I just prop something just so it doesn't swing closed on me while I'm in there. And as you can see here, the kayaks are up out of the way, and I just pulled it down so you can see, but it usually tucked up right up underneath the in the Clearstory area. And the shelves are in, I got my workbench underneath that window, and I've just brought all the loose stuff that was just in storage in the house outside here. Our bikes are strung up, they're just on hooks, and it keeps the floor nice and clean. I made some shelving for extra wood, and here I'll just show you how I hoist this kayak. The loops, you basically just put one end in and then the other end in, and I put an extra string across just to prevent those from sliding out. And with a little effort, you pull that remaining tail that I've strung up behind the shelves and hook it on the back wall, and it's hoisted up. And this is what I was most excited about, just driving my dirt bike in and out and being able to work on it. And with the extra windows up top, it is always light inside. If it's raining, whatever the weather, I can be in there and working on it. And with that, my shed is complete. It was a really big project. I enjoyed every step of the way, and I think it turned out great.